Welcome everyone again to this second round of panels of the Space Education and Strategic Applications Conference 2023. I'm so glad to be here in this panel on indigenous approaches to space. And I don't want to take more of your time. We will begin this panel with Saskia Bermelin from the law school at the University of Strathclyde, in Scotland. Each of you will have 20 minutes, and please, if you have any questions, you will find an option there in your Zoom. Just click the button and write your questions, and our panelists will be answered those by the end of the session. Okay, so welcome Katja, Bridget, and Saskia. The panel is all yours.
Thank you. So I'll just kick off then. I'm just going to share my screen. Sorry, I'm just trying to upload my screen. Which I don't, I have lost. Okay, I'm going to, sorry, I've lost my PowerPoint presentation, but that's okay because I only had one slide. So, so that's not a disaster. Yeah. So, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. So, thanks for the kind introductions. And this is going to be a double act. I will start off, and then I will show a presentation by my colleague Christine Black from Australia. So, I will kick off. So our talk is about a comparison between the VOC, the Dutch East Indian Company, which I will refer later to as the VOC, and the sort of commercialization of space. So we're kind of navigating the historical echo of the Dutch East Indian Company within the contemporary commercialization of outer space. And we're particularly kind of interested to see if we can find any valuable insights into the governance of the cosmic frontier. So for those of you and I'm sure most of you are familiar with the VOC, a trading company of the 17th century, which left a huge mark on the global economy, international trade, European interactions with non-Western nations, and international law. As many historical studies have illustrated, even as a non-state actor, the VOC actually had an incredible power and contributed to colonialism, diplomacy, warfare, and also established international norms and, as I said before, international law. So our inquiry extends to present day and contemplating whether modern figures like Elon Musk and SpaceX might actually exert comparable influence over the future of space exploration and how they may yield power in the reshaping of international and domestic space law. Our argument underscores the need for a more detailed examination of how international society evolved through the rise of merchant powers and how through their colonial encounters contributed to the constructed narrative and belief of terra nullius. Despite SpaceX being a non-state actor, we argue that because of their technopolitical power, they can also influence the future governance of space. Our exploration of SpaceX contemporary influence and historical legacy of the VOC highlights the long-term evolving role of non-state actors in shaping international affairs, challenging traditional paradigms of state-centric diplomacy and international lawmaking. Drawing parallels between SpaceX aspirations for space and the VOC's dominion over nations prompts our critical reflection on how history can inform the governance of our cosmic aspirations, offering insights into the evolving roles of non-state actors and their influence on the future development of space exploration and space law. But as a counter-narrative to this expansionist behavior and influence, our presentation also explores indigenous perspectives on space, where consciousness transcends technology, challenging the prevailing belief in human cosmic supremacy. Indigenous narratives of planetary visitations and interactions with extraterrestrial entities disrupt conventional scientific dogma, creating a confluence of ideas with contemporary visionaries who advocate that space may not be terra nullius, but a realm that may have been or is occupied by advanced intelligent civilizations. So, and this is very much work in progress, what we are presenting here. So in the first part of our paper, when I'm summarizing, because the paper would be too long, we explore intriguing parallels between the commercial space age and the expansionist power of the VOC during the 17th century. We contend that this contemporary trend of territorial expansionism by non-state actors finds historical precedents in the form of the VOC and its role in blurring the lines between private and public power in international diplomacy. In the paper, then, we sort of give all sorts of examples of how Elon Musk and SpaceX and all these other corporations, how they all have a huge influence on and create an incredible power and particularly the example of Starlink in the Ukraine and how actually Elon Musk was calling the shots there, what would happen. We sort of really unpack that in the paper. But I'm sure we're all very familiar with these examples of how Elon Musk and all these different corporations are expanding, and how space travel is dependent, and how NASA is dependent on SpaceX as well. So I want to focus a bit more on the VOC in my part. So as we have transitioned into the commercial space age, we argue that by turning our attention to the VOC, we can learn much about the influences and consequences of corporations acting in lieu of states when it comes to territorial expansionism. The VOC, established in 1602 as a government-directed amalgamation of Dutch trading companies, possessed sovereign powers from the outset. It could engage in trade, enter into legal treaties, govern territory, and wage wars against foreign states. The VOC stands as the first multinational entity conducting activities on multiple continents. Its role varies in historical interpretations, ranging from a precursor to modern multinational corporations to a quasi-sovereign or hybrid entity that combines governance with private profit motives. But what I find more interesting, actually, is recent historiographic accounts argue that these merchant companies should be viewed as distinct polities and relabel them as company states. This viewpoint challenges the English school of state-centric perspectives in international relations and calls for a more comprehensive examination of the VOC's status and role in international affairs, including lawmaking. The company states were central for the evolution of the international system as the vanguards of global capitalism and European imperialism. We cannot understand how the West managed its extra-European relations without apprehending how such hybrid actors, wielding what are now taken to be core sovereign prerogatives, were early modern Europe's most important agents of expansion. It's important to note, though, that these merchant empires didn't operate in a political vacuum. They engaged with established polities, shaping European politics through their interactions with non-European counterparts. While concepts such as the equal recognition of sovereignty and the freedom of the seas are seen as crucial to modern international society and international law, they are also deeply intertwined with the rise of Europe's merchant empires and company states. As it's still, as I said, it's still very much work in progress of the paper. We only highlight the points we seek to further clarify through this analogy between the VOC and current company states such as SpaceX. As a recent study by West End points out, Grotius Magnus Opus Mare Liberum was not just a legal document arguing for free trade and freedom of the seas. It also argued for sovereign equality and freedom of Dutch colonialism and has contributed into the shaping of Dutch privateering, the seizure of foreign territory, and imperialism. Questions arise if the ever-expanding and deepening ties between the technopolitical power of Elon Musk and the rekindled US ambition for control in outer space will have a similar effect on reshaping international law. So it becomes a conducive environment that is created that caters not only for corporate, but actually also for jurisdictional extraterritorial expansionism. Elon Musk is not shy to criticize in 2021 the Federal Aviation Administration for hindering SpaceX's ambition for reaching Mars. As the US licensing body for launching into space, the FAA postponed approval for a SpaceX Starship prototype test launch in Texas. Musk subsequently commented that the FAA's space division regulatory framework was broken and had to change. And we really sort of deconstruct Elon Musk's power further to see how much future influence he will have on future regulation of space governance. So, and now I would actually like to hand over to Christine, who will give this kind of counter narrative to this expansionism. So hopefully my sharing screen will work.
Good morning. In the second part of our presentation, I will delve deeper into the resurgence of historical patterns and expand upon the comprehensive analysis initially presented by Saskia. However, I will approach this exploration from an Indigenous jurisprudential perspective, where patterns and narratives offer profound insights transcending time and space. My primary focus is the challenge to the prevalent concept of outer space as terra nullis, an empty realm devoid of human presence or any other form of intelligence, therefore allowing spacefaring nations like their colonialist ancestors to pollute as they see fit, resulting in a massive space junk problem, let alone the constant threat of a space war. However, it is noteworthy that spacefarers have developed protocols to ensure the safety of microbes. As for the possibility of encountering beings with superior intellect to humans, such notions clash with conventional thinking because to entertain such a possibility means that spacefarers would have to conduct themselves in a lawful manner rather than just sailing the high seas of space under their own rules. Within Indigenous traditions, the concept of space and space travel are far from novel. They emerge from a paradigm that transcends mere technology. Instead, they are grounded in an understanding where consciousness extends beyond the limitations of physical body, temporal constraints, and the confines of Western construct of reality. Indigenous narratives recount instances of planetary visitations, particularly to the moon, and interaction with extraterrestrial beings. However, these revelations challenge established beliefs in our cosmic isolation and disrupt the prevailing scientific dogma. However, in this paper, instead of creating a stark dichotomy, it is essential to recognise the convergence occurring at this juncture. As notable scientists, astrophysicists, and religious scholars from institutions such as Harvard and Stanford are advocating for transformative ideas. Quote, space may not be terra nullis, end quote, but rather a realm that may have been or is currently occupied by advanced intelligent civilizations. These forward-thinking pioneers can be likened to the great scientific minds of the past, from Copernicus to Galileo. During the rise of the VOC, it was Galileo's telescope that revolutionized astronomy by confirming Copernicus's heliocentric model. Similarly, today, we witness a formidable challenge to deeply ingrained beliefs held by contemporary establishments. Just as the once dominant church dogmatically asserted that the sun revolved around the earth, today's bastions of academia uphold the belief in human intellect supreme within the universe. These new challenges to the establishment are in search of alien technology, and their endeavours bear names like the Galileo Project and the Copernicus Space Corporation, led by Professor Avi Loeb of the Harvard Astronomy Center for Astrophysics of the Harvard and Smithsonian. Their motto, daring to look through new telescopes, reflects their commitment to the search for, quote, extraterrestrial technological signatures of advanced civilizations, end of quote. The Copernicus Space Corporation, distinct from the European Union's Copernicus program, aims to revolutionize our approach to search for extraterrestrial life within the solar system, departing from traditional space probes Departing from traditional space probes, the corporation's consortium of scientific experts plans to deploy swarms of hundreds of thousands of small satellite objects into space. These swarms will meticulously explore our solar system, relaying invaluable data back to Earth through dedicated transit points. In these pursuits, Indigenous insights appear to have held a foresight that resonates with contemporary discoveries made by these modern-day Galileos. Indigenous cultures, along with other ancient civilizations like the Hindu, have for centuries spoken, inscribed, and maintained narratives of interaction with non-human entities possessing advanced intellect and technology. The distinguished academic and former chair of her department, Dr. Diana Walsh Pasulka of Religious Studies at North Carolina University, astutely draws parallels between the suppression of the understanding that we are not alone in the cosmos and the repression historically faced by emerging religions. She draws a compelling analogy to the early days of Christianity, which endured brutal suppression before eventually becoming the dominant faith of Rome. Pasulka identifies a similar pattern in the growing number of young Americans who, to a surprising degree, now believe in extraterrestrial life over conventional religious beliefs. Many attest to encounters with consciousness vastly superior to the contemporary technological landscape. This awareness of advanced civilizations possessing superior technology has faced harsh suppression, a fact substantiated by testimonies presented during the US National Security Subcommittee hearing on unidentified anomalous phenomena in July 2023. What emerges from Pasulka's observation is the notion that the youth in America might be propelling the inception of an emergent belief system akin to a new religion. This paradigm shift necessitates a recalibration, one that converges with the Indigenous understanding that extraterrestrial life exists and warrants the establishment of protocols based on lawful behaviour and a recognition that outer space is not terra nullius, but a realm occupied by entities with inalienable rights. Furthermore, space should not be treated like a junkyard on one hand and a gold mine on the other. Too much of that behaviour has brought untold grief in African nations and still continues to this day. Why must such behaviour bleed into space? In light of these converging insights, it becomes evident that we stand at a crossroad poised to reconstruct our conception of the cosmos. The Indigenous wisdom, interwoven with contemporary revelations, compels us to forge a new understanding that harmonizes the traditional and the modern, the earthly and the cosmic. Lawful behaviour rather than a rules-based law, I would suggest, should be the order of the day. Thank you.
So this is, the end of our presentation. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Saskia and Christine in the video. And now I will pass the word to Bridget Kimsey. Bridget is part of the American Public University, and I leave it at that because it's better to listen to you. So welcome, Bridget, and the panel is all yours.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, God willing. Okay. So I will go ahead and present. My name is Bridget Kimsey. I am a registered member of the Delaware Tribe of Indians out of Bartlesville, Oklahoma. I'm Lenape Indian. I'm also Irish. So I was raised in two very different cultures. But my time is short here, and my presentation is typically fitting in within a 45-minute presentation. So I'm going to tighten it up. And if you'd like more, you can always be in touch. I'm just going to see if I can go ahead and get started here. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to move a little more quickly. I'm aware of my time. I've been working inside of global Indigenous methods and Western scientific methods for 30 years in the fields of healthcare, research, writing, policy, and security. My training runs along the spectrum of human health, biology, chemistry, engineering, and physics. I work with different communities on different projects. I'm a published author, researcher, and consultant. I am working on my Master of Science degree in the field of space studies and astronomy at APUS. And I have an interest in a PhD in artificial intelligence and Indigenous studies and combining the two. My professional goals are to continue to research and write and continue working on finding different ways of knowing in science, creation, and the nature of reality. Feel free to always be in touch with me. Trying to think what else I can say. I am a solar system ambassador for NASA JPL. So I do interface quite a bit with NASA and the national community, as well as working at a state level. Been in healthcare for 30 years. So I am bringing a biology to this unique perspective. And I am a teacher at the University of Vermont. Okay. So how do we, as the modern dominant culture, describe artificial intelligence? And I apologize, but it's a little hard for me to see the slides with us all here. So I'm going to see if I can move us down. There we go. Okay. So how do we, as the modern dominant culture, describe artificial intelligence in 2023 AD? So when I was at the Boston Museum of Science in February, the definition is as follows. AI includes any technology where computers mimic human intelligence, often by determining patterns from huge amounts of data. AI is already impacting many aspects of our lives, and this technology can be improved by asking questions about where and how we use it. So AI is utilized currently, applications of artificial intelligence, well known at this point, I think, by many. Automobiles, business, education, healthcare, and it will be used on Gateway and as far as many space applications on the ISS, and already is being used as such. So there are pros and cons of current AI, and I won't take too long with this slide, but this is a modern dominant cultural interpretation and lens of some pros and cons. Now, there's already a bias here of what is important to look at. What I gravitate to look at here is, as a tool, AI can bring some efficiency, crunching large volumes of data, and leaning into mechanical advantages. My concern from this list focuses in on controllability, of course, ethics, but truly the impact on the human organism, physically, emotionally, mentally, energetically, in community, and 7 generations ahead of the impact on the human animal. As important to note, the human animal is a biological animal of Earth, like other animals on Earth, and has not changed much for thousands of years. We have specific needs and requirements to stay healthy. And in this, I do bring in my background as a healthcare provider for 30 years, working in depth in multiple ways with the human animal inside of global Indigenous methods and Western scientific methods, particularly oncology medicine, for 15 years. So streamlining again, pros and cons. And we can see some of this was done, we can already see these numbers already, going further and faster. When I open up to looking at AI in the future in a public domain setting, again, from the bias I've described, I do see quite a bit focusing on capitalistic growth and the value of capitalistic growth. Putting that trend aside, we can see it is predicted to really take off and already has begun to do so. But let me pull back. Let's go back in time. Technology and innovation has been around for all of human history. We can go deep here, but it is a good reminder that technology, advanced technology, innovation, expansion, math, physics has been around for all of human history. I like the term ethnomathematics and ethnophysics because while the concepts are the same, how they are presented is individual for each culture. So to dismiss a culture because you do not understand how they are representing their embedded math and physics is not quite accurate to understanding what they're talking about. Anywho, numbers can be debated, but I'm going to go with 300,000 years ago. And the complexity of the technology is found, let us say, in archaeological digs. But that as a native person often misses most of the data because those that are doing the archaeological digs, it is being viewed from a westernized, colonized, influence lens. I feel often this is a point in my talking with those in the modern dominant culture that is forgotten, lost, or just not aware. So this is my tribe as a registered member of the Delaware Tribe of Indians. Our original homelands in Lenapehoking date back 10,000 years on the mid-eastern seaboard of what is currently known as the United States of America. And we lived on Lenapehoking and cared for ourselves, the land, all species, for about 10,000 years, until being forcibly removed in the 1700s AD. Our current tribal headquarters is in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, as well as in Kansas. Professor and archaeologist Herbert Kraft and his family dedicated their lives to studying the Lenape. With these slides, I'm only going to briefly touch on how technology has developed, changed, integrated, with the focus being on health of the individual, health of the tribe, health of the habitat, stewardship of the land, stewardship of all species, both seen and not seen. For the Lenape, the seen and not seen, all dimensions flow in and out of each other. All is viewed as sacred, and there is no separation. I continue here, and I hope I'm just showing how different changes and advancements and ways of clothing, starting in with agricultural tools, technology, is shifting and changing through this 10,000-year time period. The tribe is a living organism and document, as you will. There are many layers and constraints and ways of operating that are highly involved. There is much discussion to determine what new way, seen by another, let's say in a journeying session, or that comes from the plant world, or that comes from trial and error, that comes from the scientific method, that is discussed extensively by the tribe. The implications of new ways are examined closely with metrics in it. Is it health-giving? How does it look 7 generations ahead? How does it impact other species? There is much debate. I'd like to note that this process is very different than what I have observed in the current, what is referred to as the New Age movement, or in instances of cultural appropriation, gleaning what works and is seen by modern others from a westernized, colonized lens as a value, whether understood or such as not as appropriation. This is, in fact, the scientific method in action, and how I was trained as a medicine person, dimensional mediator, and knowledge bearer, to never follow one's subjective experience ever, or thoughts, but instead to listen, to observe closely how it works in nature repeating itself, inclusive of the human animal. Here is the slide of a very tiny bit of native indigenous technologies. And please note, with this entire PowerPoint, I have everything cited. So if you're interested in any of the pictures or information, please let me know. To note, nothing is created without purpose. Art, science, purpose, all serve purpose and work together. This is something, again, lost on most Western colonized minds and research. Most data is not correctly understood or translated. I'd say about 90% is lost to most Westernized human animals. It is highly advanced. For example, I'm going to give one example. When one is ill, determined in full what the illness is by a tribal medicine person / scientist, part of their healing process might be in weaving a certain pattern in a rug or basket of a certain color over a certain prescribed time measurement each day. This process of weaving a certain specific pattern code helps rewire the brain, which relates to the different organs that are ill. A fact starting to come to light in modern day imaging done in neuroscientific studies, in MRI machines, and etc. So there is a coming together of seeing the same information from different lenses. To note, most tribes do not share the deep wealth of work they have accrued over thousands of years anymore with those outside of their tribe, due to genocide, abuse, misuse, and harm that has been done to tribes and or the information. For example, 40% of modern pharmaceuticals come from indigenous knowledge, creating a $1 trillion industry while not including and putting down or killing indigenous people. This is still happening with the development and need for rare earth elements and taking huge amounts of earth out of indigenous property and land holding to be used and well, I could go on, but I will stop. Okay. There are many examples of native indigenous artificial intelligence. Like all technology, AI has been with humanity since our beginning. I've chosen here to look at animal traps. Again, this could be up for debate, but I am looking at the actual word, artificial intelligence, creating a tool that is following what the individual and tribe needs. For example, here in this animal trap, there is a way to effectively, efficiently, and safely catch animals in an artificial construct of the human's design. Instead of hunting down said animal, they are creating a tool that uses intelligence in creation, application, and meeting the target wish for. I want to emphasize the process of development of such a tool is embedded and rooted in a health-promoting society and matrix that is specific in what metrics it deems as safe and appropriate and being a good steward for themselves and for all of nature. In this example of said animal traps, it was and is never undertaken casually. So what is the intersecting point of AI for global indigenous scientific methods and Western scientific methods, especially with the idea of becoming an interplanetary species? Where is it? Does it exist? Can it exist? I'm going to pull up an image here of Manhattan. Manhattan is a Lenape word meaning a place that is an island in the current United States. Now, New York City, place that is an island. Here we have an image, let's say about 10,000 years ago. And here is how it has developed over the last 400 years. I am looking solely at objective data. How is the health of the land, the water, the air, the health of all animals, including human? I could go on, but these two very different approaches to life and what these two lineages value are different. So the shaping of their tools are going to be different. The tool creation is reflective of the human animal living and operating in the climate they have created. Math is the universal language, and math is in all of nature we see on Earth. Nature is so much older than anything that humans have created or that humans are. Humans are one of the youngest species on this planet. Code and equations are how I work in all of my abilities. I will take healthcare as an example. If someone comes to me with an illness, that illness is the absolute correct outcome for the equation they find themselves in. It is perfection. If the person has an objective for healing, then my inquiry will be looking how the equation is constructed on multiple fronts and platforms and dimensions to land the person where they are currently looking at me in the third dimension. I will see what wiggle room we have and where and if I am the best complementary or not helpful person for them to work with. Again, if their objective is healing, their objective may be something else. There can be zero bias or subjectivity in how I work. The focus is only on the tenets of nature, earth, and how the universe operates, math, physics, and equations. Now, I can still have compassion and care and emotions. They do have a role, but I am always in service to reality, nature, and truths that are much older than the human species. And I know this. I live in a culture that knows this and honors this. To note, all humans today are living here 300,000 years in the future because their rooted global indigenous ancestors, all of them operated in a manner similarly as I have just described. What many modern humans think of as the human condition for human animals is not what has been known or developed for thousands of years by indigenous ancestors that we all share. I'm going to move through this one just for time's sake. These are just some current ideas to make modern AI better. And there's definitely, we're working on it. How can we be more technologically efficient, effective, humane, and safe for all? So let us go a step further. AI is currently being created in a human-centric model. What does that mean? If a human animal and their community has gotten away from basic principles and following the ways of Earth and what has worked, the creating of a tool that is human-centric will reinforce the same. The tool will highlight the shadow elements of said human, the diseased parts. This means that programmers are creating a tool that is focused on the variations of each human creating it. The tool will carry whatever thoughts, energy, challenges, shadow aspects, dark aspects, conscious, subconscious, unconscious, and light aspects of the programmer. Like giving birth to a child, the apple does not fall far from the tree, and will highlight any learnings that you need to see or hear, both good and bad, for this is how nature works. Just coming back to that shadow part. And if we really open this up, the universe is only 5% that we know of known matter. 95% is dark matter and dark energy, the subconscious and unconscious of the universe. So it represents a fractal of how we operate. An Earth-centric AI model is listening, learning, and programming following tenets found in nature. To go back to the indigenous crafted AI is to go back to a nature Earth-based centric tenets for creation. What might be a more sound approach is to look to nature to create a tool such as AI that is truly supportive from an Earth-centric approach to repair, heal, learn from, to be mindful in approach and honest with self as programmer. This gets out of bias and actually can become a technological aid and support for humans as we move along on our journey both on Earth and in the universe, as we become an interplanetary species. It is best to be humble and draw close to Earth tenets, and this can be achieved in a few ways, whether own learning, community learning, looking deeper into our historical collective, and or mending bridges with indigenous cultures and translating correctly what they have learned works and does not work. There are options. Just showing how sunflowers follow the sun. I'm running out of time, so I will try to wrap this up. Modern current AI is a human-centric model. On the line here is our energy, our life force, and our heart. In the human animal, the heart is 100 times electromagnetically stronger than the brain. We are designed to impact with living organisms in certain ways. It impacts them and it impacts us. It is a relationship. When we interact with anything, it impacts all parties. It is a relationship. We are interfacing with a construct that is brimming with life, atoms, and molecules. So when you hold a phone, piece of AI equipment, you are interfacing with this device and your energy is going into it and all around it. It learns from you and you learn from it. And what are the results of humans bonding with AI in this manner? Without stabilizing factors or an approach to truly understand AI as a non-life form tool, it begins to take on a life of its own. And the human brain and human animal is stymied and suffocated in its ability to evolve and grow. People have real attachments and love and strong emotions to their devices, computers, robots, AI machines. And there is an addiction component that is brought in to help with the capitalistic values of the current capitalistic approach to AI, cutting us off further from our basic needs such as community and health that will help us grow and stay healthy. The human is grooming and being groomed to an AI world. Probable effects of artificial intelligence have already been talked about and have already been highlighted everywhere from scientists to doctors to technologists. Will AI control us? How much does it already control us? And I know I'm running out of time, but what are safety components? I just am looking at nature. You have poison ivy and jewelweed next to each other. Poison ivy is still a medicine, and jewelweed, if it gets out of control, will help it. Same idea here with AI. If you are putting in a problematic issue that could be a problem in AI, you need to have the AI outside, like you see in nature, to take care of it. You can't think to have the problem inside of the AI. You need to have it outside of, like you see in nature does with plants. So AI can save or destroy the environment. It can help us or harm us. It will also change nature, because everything that we introduce into our ecosystem, nature understands. I see this in healthcare with virus and bacteria working together now in ways that they were not 30 years ago because of instrumentations they've learned inside of how to operate with each other, looking at how, for example, devices work with satellites in low Earth orbit. So here we are. It is really in our hands about how we proceed. We have a wonderful legacy of 300,000 years behind us. It's really up to us to see, I think, Saskia, I'm probably not pronouncing your name correctly, really set it up really well to show that. And I see this very often happening when I work inside the space industry and interface with different space agencies. It's very much following the tenets of what we see with Christopher Columbus and Magellan, and is even inside of textbooks I have been asked to read for my studies, where it's bringing forth the slave trade, as bringing that up as something to emulate, and also bringing up what Christopher Columbus did. So that is something that is being promoted inside of space studies in different colleges and universities. And I will stop there. I apologize. I ran over 2 minutes. But if you'd like to learn more, I had to shorten, let me know.
Okay, thank you so much. Remember, we have the chat if you want to expand the conversation. Even some of the panelists have left their email to continue that way. And I will give the word to Kaya Antje. Kaya Antje came from Deakin University in Australia. And yes, please, the space is all yours, Katja, welcome. And we will have 5 minutes at the end for the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Mauricio. Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to speak at this inspiring conference. Really exciting to see the speakers before me. It's fantastic talks. So my name is Dr. Kaya Antje, and I'm senior lecturer in industrial design at Deakin University. I'm also one of the co-leaders of HUTech Space, a new human technologies in space research group at our university. So this presentation discusses meaningful, heritage-based, immersive extended reality experiences for well-being in space. And in particular, I will be talking what can be learned from Indigenous perspectives. I'm not Indigenous myself. I was born and raised in Slovenia and now living in Australia. Today, I will present an example of close collaboration with our Indigenous colleagues and how can we work together for the benefit of not only human space exploration, but also well-being of people here on Earth. So first, I wish to begin by acknowledging the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional custodians of the lands, waterways, and airways on which I'm presenting from here in Naarm, in Melbourne, Australia. I pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging of all the country on which we do our business today. So our research initiative has recently been granted seed funding from Deakin Science and Society Network Project Incubator that promotes interdisciplinary collaboration between STEM and humanities and social sciences. So this pilot study is investigating how to develop a framework for measuring and monitoring the emotions of users immersed in VR. I will talk about the current data collection as part of these projects toward the end of this presentation. But first, the team members of this pilot comes from psychology, museology, Indigenous knowledges, human-computer interaction, applied artificial intelligence, industrial designs, and space studies. So with a holistic approach, a holistic Indigenous approach towards health, well-being, and sense of place, we aim to develop innovative, content-driven, technology-supported solutions for the benefit of users in isolation. With Indigenous scholars on the team, including Tyson, John, and Gabby from NICERI, the National Indigenous Knowledge Education Research Innovation Institute at Deakin, we're not investigating indigenous culture. Instead, we are applying the indigenous lens and examining the past European exploration endeavors, ensuring mistakes from 200 years ago are not repeated in future human space missions to the Moon, Mars, and beyond. So the main innovation lies in its interdisciplinary approach, bringing together, as mentioned, heritage, indigenous knowledge holders, engineers, and scientists to develop well-being solutions for astronauts and those in isolation. Excuse me. So although indigenous astronomy is highly valued, the holistic approach of this the First Nations towards well-being and heritage is underutilized in human space flight. So the holistic approach is even more important when speaking of diversity, and addressing indigenous differences in cultural diversity become crucial as human space exploration advances. Our initiative emphasizes the importance of personalized, meaningful experiences for astronauts on long-duration isolated missions and individuals living in isolated environments on Earth. So decreasing diversity in space exploration necessitates a deeper understanding of cultural context and diverse backgrounds when designing well-being solutions for astronauts. For instance, the Artemis program aims to land the first woman and the first person of color on the Moon. Australia, of one of the first partner countries to sign the Artemis Accords, is also preparing to send its first female astronauts into space, showing the country's commitment to contributing to global space exploration efforts. The National Indigenous Space Academy is another initiative highlighting the importance of diversity inclusion by embracing a holistic perspective on a sense of place and unique Australian perspective. The program was announced by NASA Administrator Bill Nelson in March 2023 in Adelaide. So as you're familiar with, NASA identifies 5 hazards of human spaceflight. We are specifically focusing on the 4 of those: isolation and confinement, distance from Earth, gravity or lack of thereof, and hostile enclosed environment. Those may cause psychological and physiological issues to the crew members. For example, many astronauts report challenges such as loneliness, boredom, disconnection, sensory deprivation, diminished cognitive performance, and stress while in orbit. You can read about those in their biographies. So to mitigate those issues, the project aims to develop heritage-based immersive digital solutions that enhance the well-being of astronauts during extended space missions. The focus is on enriching everyday activities such as leisure time, including meditation, eating, and physical exercise through heritage-inspired multisensory XR experiences. Supported by artificial intelligence and machine learning, these experiences will be developed and utilized to monitor the well-being, such as emotional states of astronauts, in an objective way. To achieve this goal, novel and unique XR experiences will be designed and developed in collaboration with museums and Indigenous knowledge holders. So as further as a spin-off technology, immersive experiences that include social interactions can also improve the lives of socially live socially and culturally isolated individuals on Earth. So, for example, older adults in retirement villages, or those in hospitals, in prisons, those working in oil rigs on Antarctica, and so on. So at the moment, we are developing a project to investigate XR for eating experiences. So these experiences will be tested in established Earth-based analog astronaut missions and ultimately incorporated into future long-duration space missions. The experiences will also be tested with culturally diverse museum visitors using a citizen science approach to also boost audience engagement in museums. We also have developed PhD projects with Coventry University in the UK and also Chitkara University in India to explore how these experiences can improve well-being of isolated migrants living away from their cultures. So museologist John H. Falk defines meaningful experiences as those that are valuable to users and that can create lasting memories, as well as having the potential to affect long-term well-being. So emerging research from analog missions suggests that nature-based XR experiences can improve mood in isolated, confined, and extreme environments, especially those that are tailored to personal preferences. As per UNESCO, heritage is our legacy from the past, where we live with today and what we pass on to future generations. Our culture and natural heritage are both irreplaceable sources of life and inspiration. There's also growing evidence that visiting museums, galleries, and historic environments can have positive psychological effects that can be explored further for the use in human spaceflight. Moreover, as pointed out by Hamacher in collaboration with elders and knowledge holders in his book, The First Astronomers, indigenous sciences are highly interconnected. While indigenous knowledges provide solutions to sustainable living, adapting to changing environments and maximizing the health of the land and on continental scale. Understanding the concept of well-being is essential for developing meaningful and memorable experiences. So well-being can be defined in various ways. As described by Falk, balance is the essence of well-being and the desire for balance, and the wholeness is a universal human desire. Greatly inspired by long-lasting traditions around the world and distinct from the Western notion of well-being that are largely based on instant gratification and personal pleasure, happiness, prosperity, and comfort, Falk proposes a much deeper definition. So this understanding of well-being is also used in our research initiative. So the definition reads, you can see it here below, well-being is the ongoing, always ephemeral process of trying to maintain an appropriate balance with one's physical, social, intellectual, and personal or spiritual world. It is a holistic feeling that arises from the integration of a vast array of biological and cultural survival-oriented perspectives. Collectively, these perceptions evolved as part of complex systems designed to support the persistence of individual and the space over time. So for the First Nations peoples who have been living in Australia for more than 65,000 years and are considered to be the longest living culture on Earth, well-being is associated with the desire to be spiritually connected with the land and the values of ancestors. From an Australian First Nations people's perspective, well-being, health, and identity are linked to connections with land, sea, and air in the concept known as country. There is an obligation and responsibility to maintain relations to and with humans and more than human entities, including animals, plants, rocks, and sound. The conceptions of the scale and country acknowledge the Earth camp and Sky camp. This translates within the context of the project to pre-existence relations with the whole universe that is already held in communal knowledge and stored in multiple landscapes. So when spacefarers are amidst the stars, they describe Earth gazing as health-enhancing activity that seemingly elicit prosocial emotions and strengthens the sense of belonging and connection to nature, which is referred to as the overview effect. So the overview effect can be understood as partial re-engagement and replacement of a state of the profound relation system of country. On the note on interconnectedness and scale, how can cultural and psychological notion of the overview effect experienced by astronauts assist in content development for extended reality applications to support the psychological needs of spacefarers? So this project builds on the idea of the overview effect by drawing on some of the imaginal orientations of ancient traditions that facilitate vibrant regrounding with homelands from a distance, as well as more recent strategies developed by Indigenous communities to cope with this possession and removals as form as healing and maintaining well-being of not just the human, but country of all holism. This speaks to adaptive range of the centricity of relations and the duress of Indigenous systems thinking. So the Indigenous XR experiences could leverage overview effect to move beyond relaxation and mitigating homesickness and seek to enhance observational capacity and mental health through connections to the astronauts' locatedness and sky camp, rather than mere escapist illusions of their home planet as a bounded interaction and inhabitation. So, as mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, at the moment we are conducting a small pilot study with 30 diverse participants at the Deakin Virtual Reality Training and Simulation Research Lab at Deakin University. The main aim is to develop a framework for measuring emotional states of users engaged in seated 180-degree VR experiences. So to gain insights into the emotional states of participants immersed in 6 distant short VR experiences related to astronomical heritage and overview effect, a comprehensive data collection approach is employed. This includes gathering quantitative and qualitative data through questionnaires and interviews, as well as capturing eye tracking data and physiological signals such as electrocardiogram, ECG, for heart activity, as well as electrodermal activity, EDA, for sweating. The primary objective of this pilot study is to explore the correlation between emotional responses and psychological signals during simulated space conditions while observing the Earth. So the results will be used to further develop heritage-based experiences, especially for people in isolation, and AI model to personalize the content and understand its impact of the users. So what you can see on the two photos is a test run for this data collection conducted by our research assistant, Supriya Roy. On the right side is our participant number one, which is actually me, and the data will not be included. At the moment, we have one PhD scholarship open with Coventry University, and one vacant position is also coming with Chitkara, if anyone is actually interested in joining our team. And we're also planning to apply for a larger grant in partnership with museums. So we are also developing an experiment to be conducted at one of the analogs. And yeah, this is basically all from myself. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your presentation, Kaya, and to all of you. We have a couple of minutes, 6 more minutes to the Q&A. Our assistants are like super participative already, so please feel free to answer the questions available on the Q&A section and also in the chat. And I saw, I think Saskia already answered one question or more than one. Thank you for that. Also, Bridget. Or use this time to trying to round up an answer of all the questions there.
I don't mind jumping in for just a second. I mean, this is something that I'm looking at one of the questions: in what ways can Indigenous knowledge contribute to contemporary scientific research and space exploration, and how can collaborations between the communities provide mutual understanding and benefit? The one thing I'm going to say here, and that I'm quite frustrated by, is constantly looking at Indigenous studies as a humanity. I mean, like, do bow and arrows just fly out of the sky? No, there's a lot of amazing technology and a lot of trial and error for thousands of years, 300,000 years. And I mean, I think this is going back to Neanderthals and other forms of humans, and not the Homo sapiens. So it's really beginning to open up the dialogue that just look at ethnomathematics. Ethnomathematics is only offered in like Malaysia and Hawaii. Why is and maybe Edinburgh, why is ethnomathematics and ethnophysics not being taken with some more seriousness? I mean, this is not hard now with neuroscientific imaging, as we were talking with simulations with different technologies. This is not hard to put both what has been proven and shown, what I was just saying about the neuroscience point of view with different colors and how they impact the brain and how they then impact the neurological system. These are not things that just sort of happened. There's actual working with atoms and electrons and molecules and physics and this idea of time, this temporal idea that time is linear. I do not understand. I mean, I can do it. My dad was a scientist at Johns Hopkins, and, I have a long legacy of very powerhouses in my family who had to split the tribal world and the Western scientific world. And it puts a very hard position to sit here anymore when the earth is literally, you can open the news, look out your window. Things are not going well on multiple fronts. I'm looking at it both third dimensionally and I'm looking at it multidimensionally. Multidimensionally, I go into in my book, so I won't bring it up here. But what I am getting at is there is a parallel, because math and physics you cannot change. You can describe how you express them. And what I advocate is for, if you have answers about dark matter and dark energy, and you have answers about certain things, the Western culture to survive, for humanity and for the human species to survive, I would advocate for opening up some deeper understandings and put it to the test. put some of these ideas to the test. The thing that is going to be a roadblock here, though, is a lot of elders are not happy. And I'm witnessing other tribes starting to close the gates, not only on information, but taking their tracts of land and just saying, the hell with you all. You want to destroy yourself? You want to do that? Okay, go ahead. We're going to still be here because we're going to be resilient. This is not new, that we have had to deal with the earth warming. I'm not going against climate change. I'm just saying what has happened to the human species, what is going on both third dimensionally and multidimensionally. Now, I could go on to many series of how I apply both what I learned from a physics and a mathematical Western angle and how I apply that when I work with the moon, or I work with Pluto, or I work with talking with Saturn. Someone could say I'm crazy. I'm not. My efficacy is extremely strong with 30 years and working, 15 in cancer. And that why I started writing was because I got tired of doctors saying to me, oh, just go do your magic in the ER, in intensive care. Sure. Don't you want to understand why that person came out of it 10 minutes not breathing in a coma and is now breathing? And now that they're not at no brain injury, how are there's no brain injury? And I'm not even blaming doctors. They don't have the time because of all this other stuff they have to do. So does there need to be more collaboration and exploration? I would love to work with Dr. Avi Loeb. We have a lot of similarities. We are approaching the same and coming to the same conclusions using different metrics. If I were to study a star with my metrics and another scientist working with purely Western scientific metrics, we would pretty much come up with the same information, different. So we end up creating not only the third dimensional puzzle becomes a 5-dimensional puzzle. The information that is needed to help us as a species and to get us to Mars is in our history and is in our wonderful collection of Indigenous ancestors that we are all part of. So I'm just here trying to help bring this more into a physics and scientific. I'm so tired of hearing Indigenous knowledge and Western scientific methods. What the hell is that? Sorry, excuse me. But what is that? Why am I in a 10,000-year-old tradition that kept the health of the land and the health of us and still traveling to space in different operatives in different ways and getting the same information that Western scientists now have? Why am I considered less than? We go back to pre-colonial Mayans. We go back to pre-colonial Australians. We are looking at large collectives that had no other influence, that discovered all of this stuff pretty much on their own. And then they're interfacing with what? Laws of nature, laws of the universe. Right now, Western science is cherry picking what they look at and what they consider it valid. That is cherry picking, and it isn't science. Science is now getting further away from science, because if I look at the Hippocratic Oath, if I look at Hippocrates, are we even following Hippocrates anymore? Are we bringing in all the tenets of what he brought? He's supposedly the father of modern Western medicine. So what I'm getting at is, as we've become more and more slaves to the lab and different technology, is it taking over us, or are we part of it? Are we helping to decide how it moves and shapes our climate, ourselves, and our reality? So that's just my little
thank you so much. Unfortunately, we run out of time. Sorry, Saskia, Kaya, yeah. But remember, we have in our conference page in the WOBA platform space to continue the dialogue. And I saw a couple of you already shared the email addresses or the websites of your projects. That's great to keep the conversation going. Unfortunately, we have to leave the room to make a space to our next panel, considerations on human space travel and migration. So feel free to join and continue with this other topic. And thank you so much for all your thoughts this morning, afternoon, depending on your site.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.